Truth. Unforbidden. Truth. Podcast. Unforbidden. Truth. Podcast.
Welcome to Unforbidden Truth. I'm Andrew. This is part one of a two-part interview with convicted serial killer Ernest Otto Smith and an old friend of his, Fred O. Otto Smith is convicted of 2 homicides. Otto robbed and killed James DIllingham in Toledo, Ohio on January 3rd, 2005. He robbed Dillingham with his second murder victim, Cathy Barnett. After the murder of Dillingham, Otto and Cathy left Toledo and headed south to Kentucky in Otto's sister's van. Along the way to Kentucky, Otto decided he was going to kill Cathy in fear of her going to the authorities about the murder of Dillingham. On January 7th, 2005, the van broke down while they were driving to Kentucky. They ditched the van and they both hitchhiked and were dropped off in Muldrow, Kentucky, not too far from Fort Knox. The both of them walked about a quarter mile down a service road off the main highway into a wooded area, which was on the grounds of Fort Knox. In the wooded area, Otto attempted to break Cathy's neck and then beat her over and over on the head with a tree branch until she was dead. After both murders, Otto fled to Tennessee, where he would be arrested on January 21st, 2005. Otto was convicted of James DIllingham's murder and sentenced to 31 years to life in prison in March 2006. In 2016, Otto would be charged, convicted, and sentenced for the 2005 murder of Cathy Barnett in federal court. He was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Once Otto's state sentence expires, he is to start serving his sentence in a federal penitentiary. Here's part one of my interview with Ernest Otto Smith and his old friend, Fred O.
My name is Fred Oberdeer. I'm a professional tattoo artist. I've been tattooing since probably before I should have been tattooing. Started when I was 15 years old, and started working at tattoo shops at 18 years old, and that's how I met our friend. That's basically it, really, in a nutshell. I mean, I could go on, and I'm known to do so I'm not going to do that right now.
So can you talk about how you did meet Otto when you first did meet him?
Yeah, man. Of course. That's what I was gonna start getting into that. I was pretty much a young tattoo gypsy. Pretty much, I just traveled a lot. Once I started, doing it professionally, I did guest spots at a lot of shops all over the place, and I was like tumbleweed, and I was in my early 20s, and I went back to my hometown, Toledo, Ohio, and I basically, I was staying at a friend's house, and I noticed a shop, nearby. It was in walking distance because I was walking, and unless I was taking a taxi cab or something, but I pretty much took the Airwalk Express everywhere. I just walk all over, and I went over there to see what was happening, and I told you before in one of our phone calls, and he'll probably laugh about this. I don't know if I ever told him that, but he kind of reminded me of a young George Clooney at the time. He had a leather jacket and he was a lot skinnier, because he got to be a big guy, through the years of knowing him. But yeah, he didn't seem too wild, really, just like a regular guy, and I talked to him about a job, and he kind of questioned me a little bit. He does that. Once I got to know him, I realized he questions people. He'll pick at your, and figure you out a little bit. And he told me to come by the next day or something, and I walked by his shop, and it was me and my ex at the time. We're still friends, and she went on to pierce for him later. It's a whole nother story altogether. But we went back by there again, and I asked him about, it'd be a convenient job. And he's like, why would you want to work here though? Because I showed him the work I did on my ex, and he said, with that caliber of work that you're doing, you could go get a job at Infinite or wherever right now. Why do you want a job here? I'm like, well, it's convenient. It's like right within walking distance, and it seems pretty laid back here and stuff. And he picked me apart a little bit and stuff, and then I think I started the next day. and I just started working with him, and I, it takes a while to get to know people, and I started getting to know him a little over time. I remember the first like real red flags and things like that, but I'm a dedicated person. Once I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, and I already told him I would work there with him and stuff, and so yeah.
What were the red flags upon meeting him that you saw?
One of the first ones. Well, this is for everybody else listening because I've told you some of this stuff already, so I don't want to sound redundant, But I think I told you at the time that I asked him about going and having a drink, right? And there was a place called the Rooster Inn, just a stone's throw away from the shop, just about 5 doors down, probably, if I had to guess. And that's where he actually ended up. He ended up catching a case at that place. As one of the killings took place there. But I said, "Hey, man, you want to go?" He says, "No, bro." He's like, "I'm allergic to alcohol." I'm like, wow, man, I'm allergic to bees. Like I've heard a lot of allergies and stuff like that. So what happened? Because I seriously thought he was allergic to alcohol. He's like, "I break out." Wow, seriously. He's like, "Yeah, I break out in handcuffs. I break out teeth, windows." I'm like, "Oh, okay, no worries then. You and I won't ever have a drink then if that's like that." So yeah, the red flags are this. I did see him drink one night. I come in there and I wasn't out with him, but he apparently been drinking, and scary because as drunk as he seemed, he was still very nimble. And he took pride in his shop, and he had some girls in there that he brought them from the bar, and I don't know if he's, what he was doing, but he's like, "Hey, I want to, how much you want to bet I can hit that mirror with this hammer?" I think it was a hammer. I don't remember what he's throwing objects and like just busted mirrors, but he's taking like wads of money out of his pocket and like, all right, here, I'm, and giving him money, like just losing all his money in his pocket, but he didn't care. It was just he's gonna throw out of that, But he's busted his shop all up. We come in and cleaned it up the next day, you know. But that was just one of the things, like, wow, maybe he's right. He should not drink, But and I noticed he was very, very hot headed. He's always cool with me though, man, and that's why I think we still have the relationship we do, is because I never, even knowing some of the stuff in hindsight that I didn't know about him, man, I still, if he was out, I would still jump in a car and ride to Michigan with him. You know what I mean? Because I know that our relationship was different. He'd flip out, and I did never see nobody in my life. I've seen a lot of fights in my life. I mean, I'm the youngest of 9. You know what I mean? A lot of brothers. I got beat up a lot, mostly by my sister, but but I never seen nobody. I don't even want to say get into fights. I've never seen nobody beat up as many people as I've seen Otto beat up. Because he didn't just say, "Hey, get out of my shop," or you crossed him and shit. You're getting your ass whipped. You know what I mean? And I've seen that a lot. So some pretty extreme cases. But.
So can you talk about a few instances where you did see him lose his temper or him spiraling out of control on somebody?
Absolutely, man. I knew this was going to be an easy interview. Just as long as you and I can get our schedules to correlate, I knew this would be easy. Yeah, absolutely, man. I can't count on both hands, but ones that stick out. And again, I'm just gonna talk about the case with she's still a friend of mine, but she doesn't even get along with her uncle anymore. But it's a friend of mine's uncle, Tony, who was friends with me. Again, this is for the interview. I've told you all this stuff, so I just don't want to. I'm just gonna go on and say the guy I told you, he reminded you, he looked just like Hagrid from Harry Potter, but he had a shaved head. He's a big bearded guy with tattoos of pentagrams and things. He's a scary looking guy. But he was a good friend of ours. He was a gun dealer, so I was kind of afraid for a while he was going to snipe Otto, from like the square, the town square, because you can see the town square from the shop that we were at the time. This is in Napoleon, Ohio. I worried about that for a while, but nothing ever happened. But yeah, he, I guess he'd flirted with Otto's wife, or something when he was locked up, at that time. And I didn't know about all of it until later on, but he'd written her letters. She told me later on about how he said, "Why you want to be with somebody like that? Wasting your life, yada yada." What? Um. Anyhow, I was doing a tattoo of a Care Bear on a girl. Whatever that blue one was, or I think it was a blue Care Bear on her ankle, and I was tattooing her, and it always stick out that tattoo and everything. So I was tattooing on her ankle, and Tony showed up, and hey man, how's it going? And I just like I saw a ghost. I was like, dude, you need to get out of here. You need to go. Well, what's up? I said, Otto's out, dude. And he lives in an apartment right above the bar, right across the street. He's like, no, that's cool. I just talked to him and Nikki yesterday. He's like, we were out on the bench out front talking, and everything's cool. I'm like, oh, all right, cool. I mean, I was glad that was easy, and I just kept tattooing. I thought that was all out of the way, and I was tattooing her, and the door come. I heard the door ding, little ding go off, and I heard a thunderous voice go, "Motherfucker!" And it was Otto, and I was like, that doesn't sound like he's cool. And he backed him into the back of the shop. There was no way out. He was cornered behind me. And I'm just gonna say, man, he beat his ass pretty bad. If you've never heard a solid punch, like flesh on flesh punch, it it sounds like a slap on sweaty skin. And it was some pretty hard impacting punches I heard behind me. But I did what I knew was the only thing to do is to put my head down and keep tattooing. And we had these divider walls, like half walls, that the health department had us in that specific shop. We had to have like little 4.5, I think, foot walls to separate us with a little opening. So they got out from behind me, and I'd seen Otto kick him. He kicked him in the nuts, and I know because I seen his leg come up, and I heard him go oof, and his body leaned forward. I know what happened, but did I technically see? So I didn't lie. The police ended up being called and come in later and question me, and I didn't lie because I really didn't see his shin or foot make contact. The wall was in the way, so I knew everything was happening. But I could sleep at night knowing that I didn't lie. You know what I mean? I know what I heard, but I mean, if it was a trial, they couldn't say, "Well, you actually saw it." No, I didn't see it, but he beat him up pretty bad. I didn't know if he was going to get out of the shop because Otto had these toolboxes, like what we have in our studios, like little, rollaway toolboxes, and they're sheet metal, and he sent them away to get powder coated. He was trying to pimp everything out. There was a time he went through phases, and this time he was powder coated. They putting Cadillac emblems on our toolboxes, and stuff like that, whatever. But he just had that powder coat, and there was a drawer sitting on that glass countertop, where customers come up and meet, and it was a glass display case. And he picked that thing up by the corner and pulled his arm back, and I could just imagine Tony's bald head split into the skull. I seen it happen, in my head, and I'm very surprised that he let him go, and that didn't happen, and he let him go, and it was all because he let him go, and he was on his way out of there, and on his way out the door, he kept running up like 2 or 3 times and just football punted him in the ass as hard as he could, and I know he made contact with his, I know he was hurting the next day. Let's just say that. That was just one. That was one that was like bothered me because the guy was sort of like a shop friend. You know what I mean? But I've never seen him again since that day. But that's one of the explosive. But that had to do with his wife. But I've seen him snap over. I didn't know what was going on. I mean, you kept having a regular old day, and you hear that voice, whoa, and it's like somebody's getting beat up. There was a time we went to go at we used to we have him and I, we had a past of I don't lie about it to my kids, or I tell my kids the truth. That way they hopefully don't do the same things I've done. I try to teach them from my mistakes and stuff. We did, him and I did a lot of opiates, like pills and things back in the day, and we'd go to Subway and we'd order a sandwich and a foot long and some Oxycontin, or whatever, and we go down there and do our thing. at the time. Like I said, I was in my early 20s, you know. Um, I I went down there with him, and I'll never forget. He just had like short beige rug put in the lobby, and it was real nice. And I sat down with him, and we had this little joke. Me and my friends, we're close friends. Like if somebody's drinking a beer or whatever, we go. Their beer was up. We take our hand and go, oh, like or if somebody's yawning, we give them the old, oh, So he was getting ready to eat it. I sat there and I was waiting. I was sitting next to him eating, and he had a foot long, and I was waiting and waiting for him to put it up to his mouth so I could do that. And he put the sandwich up to his mouth to take a bite, and I went, oh, like that. And he started laughing. And when he laughed, one of his meatballs rolled off his sub onto the new carpet and rolled across the carpet. And I'm like, oh my God, when that happened, because for a second I thought he was gonna flip shit on me, right? And then he started laughing some more. And I was like, and he laughed his ass off about it, you know what I mean? But I was hoping that would be something that would trigger him. And it didn't, man. And we went on to have a great relationship, you know what I mean? We've had our words. I'm glad I wasn't near him when we did, because I might not be talking to you right now. Because I mean, maybe I would. Maybe I'd be in critical. Maybe I'd be paralyzed. Who knows? But all in all, man, we had a good relationship for what it was worth, and we still do, man. I was glad. Thank you for reconnecting us, actually, because I really appreciate that. It's been a long time.
So prior to the Rooster Inn incident, the bar fight, I believe it was, did you feel like he had it in him to possibly hurt somebody to the point where he could like kill them?
Absolutely. I actually worried about that times. Like I'm like, uh, when's it gonna be too much one of these times? When is he gonna hit somebody too hard, and or keep hitting them and not stop? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's before I didn't hear nothing about his past as a kid and nothing like that till his sister, I won't even say her name, but his younger sister told me about something that happened when he was younger, and I found that out later on. But I wasn't surprised when I heard about that. You know what I mean? Because yeah, I can definitely see that, and hearing some of his past too about you and I've talked about a little bit makes a lot of sense to me that maybe he did take off and go do something like that and come back. I remember him leaving multiple times, leaving the shop angry. You know what I mean? And if he came back that day, usually he would be a lot more docile. You know, not high. Like he found pills and they're just more docile. Like he went and let off some steam. You know what I mean? So it does make a lot of sense. In hindsight, it makes a lot of sense. So
So before we get out of here, would you like to end with a statement about Otto and or your friendship with him?
sure. I mean, I really don't know what to just to wing it, man, off the cuff. Like I said, man, I appreciate you hooking us back up in life and stuff because I've been told by somebody when I moved here to Tennessee, one of my old bosses, he's like, Fred, I think you could get along with the devil if he didn't do you wrong. And I got that. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse, but I have a way of seeing the good in everybody. There's a lot of good in Otto. I've seen some of your, your things, your podcast thing, and seen where people had typed like, what a monster, what an animal is. They don't know him, and I understand, but everybody is their own person, you know, and he's got a lot of good in him, believe it or not. There's something that forged him into what he is, who he is. And God, dude, he's a very charitable guy too. You know what I mean? It sounds like I'm just talking all bad about him, and I'm not. I'm just talking about the explosive person that is him, but being the Jekyll and Hyde. The Hyde definitely is a more prominent character in his makeup, but he's got a lot of good in him. And there's a lot of people. I joked with him, about his tattoo shop. Like it went from Otto's custom tattoos to we joke about he got a little big headed there for a while. He changed the name to King Otto's. Right? I told him now. I said, man, bro, if you had a shop now, if you're able to have a shop, I would just fucking go ahead and name it Uncle Otto's. Because like everybody, like all these people, all these like kids from broken homes and stuff, he's everybody's uncle. He's all these young teens, girl, boy, it doesn't matter. Like he's Uncle Otto. Otto be quick to buy a kid a pair of shoes that didn't have them, or a coat in the wintertime. He's got a big heart, so I feel like it could be easy to talk about all the negative and stuff like that, but I do see the good in everybody, and there's a lot of good in that man. He just he wasn't given much of a chance. One of my friends that used to work with us, and Otto will tell you if he's never told you, he went to my buddy Jeff is a phenomenal tattoo artist, and we thought he died. We worked at a tattoo convention in Columbus, Ohio, and he was in a bad car accident. And Otto went to what he thought was identifying Jeff's body. Jeff ended up pulling through and is a phenomenal tattoo artist. But he gave me this clock I'm going to show you. I painted this for Otto. It had a blank picture on it and stuff, and I painted this. I just got it. I like for Otto to see it. I'll probably send him a picture. Or maybe you can show him. Jeff gave me this, and I wrote King Otto's on it, and it hung in a lot of his shops. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Like a zombie, guy with a crown, and it's a King Otto's, but that's just like some part of it's memorabilia, man. It's like part of it's our history, it's Americana at this point, because let's be honest, we're all getting to be old tattoo artists now. We were young when we met, but that's that, man. That's pretty much it. I got a lot of love for the guy, I want to say that people are safe where he's at, but as long as he's, I don't want to see him locked in a cage by himself, but I don't know. He's even said, maybe it's best this way. He goes, maybe I'm where I need to be. That's about it, brother. I mean,
This is a prepaid debit call from
Otto Smith.
Hey, good evening.
Hello. Hey, how you doing? It'll get quiet just a minute. Guy's going in the shower.
Okay. I just picked up the call, and it said your call was not accepted. So I'm glad you called back.
Yeah, I know sometimes it does that, so it's no biggie. So, my name is Ernest Otto Smith. I suppose I'm from Columbus, Ohio, Toledo, Ohio, Florida, Louisiana. I mean, I basically would have been raised in Louisiana, but although I was born in Las Vegas, I mean, it's kind of weird. I'm not from America. Next question. I mean, my home's all over the place.
Can you recall any positive memories from your childhood?
Times when I was with my grandmother as a real young kid, 4 or 5, 6, so, time going to school then. It's the only actual normal time we really had. That was, the rest of the time I was on the run. My stepdad had deserted from the Army, and we were on the run. And when it wasn't that, it was due to my mom's mental problems or legal problems she had. So, yeah, I've lived a lot of places. Never really more than 6 months, except for a period of time I lived on a horse farm for about 3 years. So, yeah.
Can you recall any negative memories that stick out to you from your childhood?
Yeah, well, not going to school. Now I know that's a massive negative. Well, it was really hard. I don't like people thinking I'm stupid, and I'm not, so I worked hard on that. Beatings, sleeping in cages, being forced to sleep outside or in the garage when the rest of the family was inside, being tied up at home while the rest of the family went to town, stuff like that. Yeah. I could list negatives till the wheels fall off. If, they wouldn't be, I guess, they're negative in how you look at them now, So, yeah.
So that kind of coincides with the next question. Was, did you suffer any childhood abuse growing up? And I know you just listed a few instances, but do any stick out to you that never leave your brain, that were more traumatic to you in a sense, looking back, as an adult now?
Yeah, what sticks out the most was it seemed like I allowed it to happen. I know I didn't allow it to happen as a kid, but then when I was 17 and I finally attacked my attacker or my abuser, or went after my abuser, they didn't want to fight me. They ran and they wanted to scream and call the police. and that kind of makes all of them stick out. I mean, the scars, these weren't spankings or getting burnt because I was a bad kid. These were to teach me lessons. These were some asshole basically being a bully, and as soon as I reared up, they turned out to be hollow, and that kind of makes me regret every one of them. I think you can accept something happening to you if there was a decent reason for it to happen, but when this person makes me wonder if I'd have yelled 3 years before and stood up and chased them, would they have, how much less abuse I would have suffered. I don't know. It kind of makes me guilty. It makes me feel as though I'm guilty for every amount of abuse that ever happened to me. So, burnt the top of my feet. That was a favorite one of my stepfather's, with hot coffee, because you carry it with you for weeks. It's just a small burn on top of your feet, but as you walk, it cracks open, and by the fifth day, it's bleeding, and it's pretty painful. It gets to where you can't walk. So I've got scars there. So, but yeah, I should have got. Yeah, I mean that's there. There you go. There's something nice and fun that you would pour that hot coffee right on top of your foot, and like I said, you don't think it's that big of a deal until it blisters, and then the blister cracks, and you've got to work, and your shoes are on, and it gets dirty, and it gets infected, and it's miserable. So, yeah, that's one that really sticks out. It's just pure abusive meanness. So.
How often would your stepdad abuse you, would you say? And
anytime anything was wrong, him or my mom either were verbally abusive or physically abusive. She would let it build up and then call me in and make a big show and a production out of, taking a belt across my back, or making my stepdad take a belt across my back and make me stand there and accept it. That was the hardest. I think now, today, that's the hardest of it, is the fact that I stood there and I accepted it, but it was all this, Bible shit, honor thy parents, all this crap. And so you took it like a man, and then you tried not to scream, but you did. But yeah, things of that nature, belt buckles, stuff like that. But every day, if there was something wrong, I mean, it was my. If it was out of place, it was my fault. It seemed like in that house, And, all I did was go to work and bring in my paycheck, like a sucker. I just accepted it,
And how early would you say that was dating back to your childhood?
That started when I was 7, and I went back to live I went back when I was 6. It was pretty cool until we hit Nashville, Tennessee, Christmas 7th year, and we hit Nashville, Tennessee, and that's when he began to, I guess he was threatening to leave my mom, so she relinquished and let him bully me more. And that's the first time I can really remember him ever, picking me up by the hair and slinging me across the room, or beating me with belt buckles and really, really getting crazy. And that's when it really went downhill. And he would not do that with my older sister, and he didn't do that with his own daughter. So, and my mom didn't promote it with my older sisters or whatever. It's kind of a weird situation. Although they didn't go to school, my older sister didn't go to school. She suffered her own forms of abuse, but the whole scenario is kind of like she allowed it when he was getting ready to leave her, I think, and that was, so I became the rag to vent on, So.
Did you suffer any other type of abuse from anybody else in your life besides your mom or stepdad?
No. It's I mean, I worked on horse farms, and I worked around adults, and but they never had the opportunity to. They might be loud or boisterous with me or whatever, but nobody ever put their hands on me or was abusive to me. No. I mean, I had spankings from my grandmother when I was a typical kid shit, just typical kid shit, but nothing that you would call abusive, No, didn't. Even the adults on the farm, kind of knew their place as far as that went.
So aside from the childhood abuse, would you say that you suffered any trauma growing up? I
think social trauma. I idea how to act socially. I think that's a big one because I didn't have childhood friends. I wasn't around kids very often, and when I was out of place. Naturally, I would have been out of place. So, I was socially out of place, awkward, and no understanding why not. So, yeah, I think that's a trauma. I think that would be a trauma that I made up for by, of course, my teen years when I got away from my family and moved back with my grandmother. She called herself rescuing me. I was 17, and I'd been fighting grown men, grown adults, and already killed somebody. So I could be as weird as I wanted to be socially, and wasn't a lot anybody could say or do about it. So I was still accepted. I think it was pretty devastating as a kid to not be accepted and not have friends, and not to understand why you don't have friends.
Looking back,
I didn't know. Yeah.
Looking back, do you know why, or do you think you know why you didn't have friends? Like, did you have a hard time making friends when you were a kid?
Well, we would only go to school once a state or city got aware so that we were around, and then it was only for a very short period of time. So I had a first, second grade education, and now all of a sudden in the fourth grade or the fifth grade with maybe 2 weeks of schooling in between. So I was socially awkward, you know what I mean? Very socially awkward. No money was ever invested in our clothing or anything, so we appeared poor and everything else. And so I was out of place. I mean, literally, you can't take a kid who's got barely a second grade education, put him in the fifth grade, and expect him to do well, for a few weeks. And it might be the middle of the fifth grade year. She would only put us in the school long enough to get the children's services or whatever in that state or region or county or whatever off of her ass, and then we would move in the middle of the night again, and we would be back to being locked in the house and not going to school. And so, yeah, I was socially awkward because we didn't socialize. We had no, we just didn't socialize. We were locked in the house. So, and kids can be fun at in the fifth and sixth grade. They can be mean. They'll point out your differences real fucking quick. So.
Looking back on your childhood, can you recall what your behavior was like growing up at home?
Yeah, I scared to death, so I behaved. I mean, I behaved. It was very, very yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am type world, and I actually was very well behaved because any misstep was an ass whooping and abuse. So I actually believed all that honor thy mother, thy father crap, and went for it. And didn't do anything. Just my mom used that aspect, religion, against me. Because my real blood dad, had been a preacher, and that he wouldn't be proud of me and stuff like that. There was a lot of ways she could be abusive when she wasn't. She was a real, true blue manic depressive. We're talking months to a year down in dark rooms, sleeping all day, and everybody in the house better fucking be quiet, completely quiet. And then she'd come up out of it and try to do some business move or whatever and put everything together and then getting all kinds of trouble and be on the run from the police again. And it was up and down like that with monthly and yearly cycles. So, yeah, I behaved and we listened to my mom, and I tried my best because do the dishes right, you did it because you didn't love her. And what 8-9-year-old kid does wash silverware perfectly right every time. You know what I mean? There's common. And anything you did wrong was because you did not love your parents. So I think I behaved pretty well, And I also remember that the only time I didn't get in trouble was when I'd go get in a fight. It's kind of odd. As long as I didn't start the fight at school.
You have 1 minute remaining.
As weird as that is, is I could get in a fight at school the few times I went as long as I didn't start it. And I was sort of praised for it. So I think that becomes a theme throughout my life, too. So anyways, I'll call you right back. This is going to go off.
Can you recall what your behavior was like in school when you did attend?
I tried my hardest, let's put it that way, and but I was more concerned with how it was looked upon by other kids, I guess. I mean, the schooling was so far above me by that time, you know, but I hadn't been, we didn't read at home or anything other than the Bible, did anything like that, and didn't do any math or anything. So, I was, I tried to behave, but it's a little bit out of place, you know. And then I learned to cheat because if I cheated, I wouldn't fail spelling test, and I remember that was all fine until I got caught. So I got caught doing that, and so I mean, I was very aware that I was out of place. Let's put it that way. But as far as teachers having me spanked or anything like that, no. Short of if I got in a fight with other boys over crap, their mouth or whatever, picking on me, making fun of me, making fun of the clothes I was wearing or my hair or whatever else. Yeah, I was pretty quick to get in a fight. And other than that, I never had any troubles at school. I mean, with the teachers or anything, but we were never there for any period of time. So, a few weeks at the most when somebody was watching, and then we had to go. So, I mean, I could list up all the years of school and tell you what city they were in, and I had less than a semester of school after I left Columbus, Ohio with my mom, and where people would watch her. Her own mom would watch her, so I had less than probably half a year's worth of school, all total. So,
What was the highest grade that you completed in high school?
I never went to high school. What are you talking about?
Oh, so was the highest grade you completed 8th grade then?
I completed the first grade, half of the second grade. And I completed 6 weeks, maybe 6 weeks of the fourth grade, I think 3 or 4 weeks of the fifth, and 6 weeks of the sixth grade at one school, and then another 6 weeks at another school. That's it. There's never any other schooling. This is what I'm getting at. We only went when somebody was there to make her that she was worried, that my mom and them were worried, were watching her. That was it.
So what did you do as a child then when you weren't in school?
We watched my little sisters, and we kept incredibly quiet, and we kept the house absolutely clean, spotless. And every now and then my mom would come out of her fucking cocoon and make us clean every light bulb, every cabinet door, every hinge, any and everything in the house. You'd spend 3 days up doing that, and then she'd be back in her cocoon. It was kind of weird. She was kind of out there. And then they realized that I started shoveling snow in Indianapolis, and they realized that I could make money. And I never quit working after that. It was always, we moved to Florida, and they didn't have very many Mexicans in the late 70s, early 80s living to do much of the picking, so there was always opening somewhere with some crop or to harvest. And I could always go get out there and get to the orange grove or peanut field, lugging watermelons, strawberries, whatever. So it was always something. And I never went back to school again. Simple as that. Listed in Florida as 2 years older than I actually am, because when I was 14, they managed to use a Bible and baptismal records to claim I was 2 years older than I am now. And I was able to get a driver's license and everything, at 14 instead of when I was only 16. So, kind of, the world was a different thing. You could get away with a lot of shit.
When it came to handling animals, say from a young age up until you were, say, like a teenager or a young adult, what was that like? Were you typically good with animals, or did you have any negative traits when it came to them?
I didn't initially have any negative traits, but I picked some up, I guess, from my stepdad, and it was because my mom just had a bad habit of adopting several hundred pets at a time. I mean, she could not, I would say several hundred, but at one time she had over 100 chickens. And then she'd go out and get a couple dozen guineas and 2 or 3 turkeys and, you know, a box of fucking ducks and some guinea pigs. And, you know, she could be really bad with these animals. And, yeah, I got to where it was just easier to put them down, put them to sleep than to deal with them, you know. But out of sheer meanness, anything to an animal, like, I killed a neighbor's cat, you know, once. That was out of sheer meanness. And I do remember doing that. I was 78. Yeah, 78 in Douglasville, Georgia. You know, I remember doing that. And that was just out of pure meanness. I can't come up with a reason why I did it, but other than just sheer meanness. But other than that, I would end up. I was the one that my stepdad would send out to take care of my mom's menagerie when it got overbearing. Let's put it like that, you know. And I guess I took a little bit of joy in it, you know. You know, it was something I was allowed to do, and I wouldn't get in trouble for doing it. I was fitting. I did it a little bit. I mean, but my mom would have 23 cats in a thoroughbred horse barn. You know what I mean? And you know, fuck, you got 20. You need a couple barn cats. You don't need 23 of these fuckers running in front of horses. You know, these are high-strung horses, and they will take off running and drag you. You can't release them, so you got to hold on to them, try to keep them from getting hurt. So, or at least those were my excuses. But yeah, it could be pretty mean to animals at times. So.
Did you engage in any type of criminal activity as a juvenile?
I did some burglaries that weren't really for stealing or anything. I just wanted to just tore the places up. It's kind of weird. I went out and just tore everything up. The thieving wasn't part of it, but I did some burglaries that nobody knew about. You know, went in and took a machete or an axe and burnt things and everything else. And I'm still not sure why I did that. You know, I mean, if necessarily. So, I haven't given that a lot of consideration. You know. But other than that, no, I didn't steal any of that stuff. You know, I murdered somebody. I killed somebody when I was 13, going on 14, but I don't consider that a criminal activity. He was a older adult, Amerilito. He had a lot of tattoos. He just come over on the boat lift, Cuban boat lift, and he punched me in the eye, and I hit him in the side of the head. I can't tell you that I actually meant to hit this guy in the head. I didn't aim it. I just swung the orange hook. It's a limb hook that you pull the limbs to you, and I just swung it, caught him in the side of the head. And, you know, I guess that's criminal activity. Yeah, I guess murder is criminal activity, but it wasn't really murder. He had tried not to pay me. Long story, he tried not to pay me. And my mom sent me back, told me to get my money. And I went back and tried to get my money, and he started beating on me. And he wasn't a parent. He wasn't a mom or a dad or somebody I was supposed to honor. And I just smacked the shit out of him with that hook. Swung it blindly, more or less. And I call that a killing, not necessarily a murder. You know, there's a vast difference between killing somebody and deciding to kill somebody. You know, when you decide to do it, you know, okay, this person is going to die, that's murder. Whereas killing somebody, swinging a hook at somebody that's beating on you is without intent, that's more of a killing. You know, I don't know how you guys look at it. I don't consider it one of my criminal activities, you know.
So what came about after that then? Like, what happened after that killing took place? Were you investigated or?
Yeah, as I'm told, 1992 they had already found the body. It was buried. My mom, the guy owed me for 2 days because I was by myself. I could only pick a couple thousand pounds of oranges a day, which made me absolutely useless in an orange grove. They try to get pickers; they can pick 8,000 or 9,000 a day, and all the rows get emptied about the same speed. So he was trying to make me quit coming to that grove and going to work. So he had paid me, and my mom sent me back to get get paid, and I did. I went back, got paid, and when I took the money, they drove up there, and we drug him, tied him to the back, to the hitch on this little tent that we had, this little ball hitch, and tied him to it with one of the large electric cords and drug his ass over by the back to the back of the grove and buried him. And my mom had me pick up all the wet sand, the blooded sand, where it would make cakes and put it in these 5-gallon buckets. There's all kinds of 5-gallon buckets in these orange groves where it's just using to pick up the oranges and dump them in this bigger tub. So I filled up, I don't know, 2.5, almost 30 of those with the cake blood, and we buried all that together. And in '92, I was trying to get to Florida to a county jail in Florida so I could kill my stepfather, who had molested one of his own daughters, was in jail for that. And I felt like I had betrayed her by leaving home. And maybe had I not done that, I would have, she would have been hurt or whatever. So I was trying to get down there, and I confessed to the murder and all. And I looked into it in Smithville, Florida, and said that, it matched the description of a body out that they found in the groves. But I was 13 at the time, so, Ohio had their hooks in me. Ohio had me in a 15-year sentence here, so I was, it was all, oh, well, they didn't even have a name for the guy, so they kind of let it go. They did a lie detector test, I passed, and all that stuff. Florida decided they didn't want to bring me down there, so, basically because my mother told me pretty much that I was trying to get to that county jail because I was probably trying to kill my stepdad. It's a good bet. Yeah, it's a pretty good bet. I still feel bad. My sister would go ahead and go on and have a couple kids of herself and then abandon them and, die due to Oxycontin and opioid abuse in '09. And I can't help but think that somehow that wasn't my fault, I was over there to do my job and protect them, what I mean? So, yeah. But I didn't kill anybody else until '83 when I moved to Columbus. And I started attacking, drug industry people, stuff like that.
And was that were you still a juvenile when you were then?
I was 17, but I would not have been treated as a juvenile. Not the things I was doing. I mean, for fall of 1983, I was on a rampage in Columbus. I was having a ball. I didn't give a flying fuck. I don't know the full extent, but because I didn't stick around, but I was proving to myself I was tough, that I was proving to myself I wasn't weak. Let's put it that way. So I would go after adults.
Did you engage in any type of criminal activity as an adult prior to the cases that landed you in prison that you're serving time for currently?
I fought. I stabbed a guy, and I never got caught when I was out. I got caught for one stabbing, but that was one. But never got caught for any running around I did in Columbus through '83. In '84, and I ended up in prison in '85, and I got back out in '88, and I had a fistful of fun after '88 and '89, complete with a murder, and I went back to prison on a parole violation. I had a bad habit; I could not seem to get off parole, So yeah, but as far as breaking and entering and robberies and stuff like that, no, I didn't partake into crap like that. Really, a lot of fights. A little bit of stealing, stuff like that,
What was your first prison stint for?
Burglary, B&Es, having a gun, and it all stemmed from after that first stabbing. The first one was assault, where I stabbed a kid, a guy my age in a fight. So,
What was the aftermath of that?
I got a no bill by the grand jury on that, but by then I was already knee deep, and the police were already all over the top of me. They were chasing me down they were thinking I'd been doing a lot of the things that people have been blaming. There had been a guy that was reported to look a lot like me running around, getting in fights and hitting people, attacking people downtown, drug dealers, stuff like that. And it was they were pretty much on top of me by then, so I wasn't going anywhere. You know, I ended up doing 3.5 years. Went to the max, got out, and could not get off parole. Did not manage to make it off parole before they sent me back again for going back to Florida. And I went down to Florida and see my family. Ended up catching a murderer, doing a murder there, and one in Kennesaw, Georgia. You know, and that was in 88, 89. And I caught a murderer. Actually did a murder in Columbus, I'm certain of, and then I got my parole violated. If had I never gotten my parole violated those 2 times, I think I probably would have got caught for a lot of crimes that I got away with. Let's put that away. But by me going back on a parole violation, they never caught up with me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So how many homicides had you committed prior to the homicide of James DIllingham?
The James DIllingham, Christ, 1997, I went to court on one. It was manslaughter, bar fight. Prior to Dillingham would have been next, third from the last. So, at least 16 that I know of that actually died. There's some in the 80s that I don't know if anybody died or not, but they should have. I didn't, necessarily haunt the newspapers or watch TV to see if it was reported or not. Hell, I only know about the one in October of '89 because a friend of mine saw it on TV and was talking about it, and then I went and read about it in the newspaper. I just wasn't I wasn't aware enough of myself to go hunting to see if I'd gotten caught or yet or not, or if I'd been seen or what had happened, So, yeah. So, at least. There's a lot of I've confessed to, and I've talked to them about. And the police know it happened. They don't doubt it. They go out looking. When you go running around the woods, you don't run into a lot of dead bear bones or raccoon bones or even deer bones. Nature tends to break a skeleton apart pretty quick. Spread it out. So, it is what it is. I can tell you crimes. Tell you where bones are, and it is what it is. And you can go out there, take a cadaver dog, and go find what you find. And I guarantee it'll match what I say, but after years, I'm learning. Hell, after 7 years, there was 29 bones left of my co-defendant, Cathy Barnett. Only 29 bones left there out of 209. So you can figure it out. The nature takes care of itself pretty quick. When you raffle up in plastic like a dumbass that you get caught.
So we'll circle back at the end of the interview on the other homicides that you haven't been convicted of, but in regards to the criminal activity prior to the homicides of Dillingham and Barnett, did you do any type of drugs or alcohol that would amplify your criminal activity?
Yeah, I don't know if it amplified it. They probably kept me from doing it a lot sooner. But yeah, I was strung out on opioids, and I would frequently do lots of cocaine. Meth wasn't big at that time, so no, I'd only done meth. I think I did meth one time prior to that, and one time after that, when the FBI was hunting me, and I was actually paranoid, so I never wanted to do it again. But I did lots of opioids, lots, and lots of cocaine. I'd try to go days without opioids by doing cocaine, but yeah, I was actually on the hunt for drugs that night, on the hunt for opioids and doing cocaine that night I killed Dillingham. That's all that was. And I was going through a divorce and feeling bad, and Cathy came in complaining about this guy and all this other shit, so I said, fuck it, I'll show you how I handle it. And I went up there and I beat dude half to death, and he didn't think I'd shoot him, I guess. So, next question, he's dead. I pulled the trigger. That's not, honest to God, that's what happened. He said, I'm not worried, bitch, you ain't gonna pull the trigger. And I aimed at the second button on his shirt and blew his fucking heart out. There you go, motherfucker. There's your bitch. You know, I got your bitch swinging. There it was. He walked outside the door, spun around, fell down. And Cathy lit her crack pipe and looked at me and said, "Yeah, you showed me how to handle that one." And off we went on the run. You know, I knew that was just way too public. I mean, it was way too public to get away with. I was stupid. I was stupid.
So Otto, backing up a little bit, what did you do career-wise prior to catching the 2 cases that you're serving time for now?
I worked a lot of different places until I got a job tattooing, or started hanging out at a tattoo shop in Columbus, Ohio, and I learned to tattoo at James Tattoo Shop on West Broad Street. And because I could draw anything. Somebody pointed out I could draw it, so I could draw it. And this is back in the 80s, before there was a lot of modern equipment. Copiers weren't common, so having somebody could draw right there on somebody's skin was kind of fun. So it got me taught to tattoo, and then I ended up opening up tattoo shops in Columbus. And well, not in Columbus. I never had a shop in Columbus, but I ended up opening them in Toledo, Ohio, and Bowling Green, Ohio, and Fostoria, Ohio, Napoleon, Ohio, Defiance, Ohio, and the Easy Riders in Detroit. So yeah, I had quite a few shops over time. Most of them all at once. So I did pretty good. Yeah.
So
that's why there wasn't a lot of crime in my life at that time, other than doing drugs and maybe, you know, running off crackheads from my neighborhood or beating somebody's ass. There wasn't a lot of crime because I had too much to lose. You know, I had a house, I had a car, I had a wife, I had dogs, cats, the fucking pond, the whole 9 yards. So I was trying my hardest to be normal. You know.
Going off of you saying that you would beat up crackheads and the homeless people, can you talk about the incidents of being on top of the roof with the, what was it, airsoft gun or a BB gun?
Yeah, the problem with that is which time. I mean, it was like this person that brought that up. I'll talk about it. It's funny as fuck, really. I had beat up too many of them. These crackheads. They're not. You'd have to picture my tattoo shop was about 2 blocks from a mental health center, rescue crisis type center, 2 blocks the other way from a soup kitchen, a Catholic soup kitchen, and my next door neighbor was a party store / where you paid your bills and got your videos and all this other shit, and we shared the parking lot together. And these idiots who had apartments, they weren't homeless or any of this other crap, they would just panhandle, and they would get in women's, you know, right up on top of the women and claim, "Hey, my car's broke down, I need gas," because these are for women just to hand them money and push them out of the way. Well, once I realized they were doing that, I went out there and told them to knock it off. You know, don't do it. You're not going to do it in Ray's Party Store anymore. And they didn't listen, so I got arrested a couple times for smacking the holy fuck out of these dudes and running them off. You know, I told you I'll be in my fucking parking lot. And I meant it, you know. I meant it, and that's all there was to it. And then the people at the party store, who ran the party store, got to where they appreciated it. So they would call us when somebody was shoplifting in the store, and I would come over and, you know, smack the fuck out of the guy. I'm not going to ask him to open his coat. I smack him, open his coat for him. Man, bitch, told you I'll be up here doing this. Get going. Well, we would get up on the roof once I realized that the cops were taking offense to me doing this. So I would just get up on the roof with a pellet gun and shoot him in the head, and shoot him in the leg, shoot him in the ass. And when that didn't work, if they still hung out, when they'd buy a 40 ounce, they'd come walk out in their 40 ounce, I'd shoot the 40 ounce. Because they couldn't see me behind the sign. And I took friends up there and stuff, and must have been 10 different people went up there over the year, too, that this was going on with me. And we'd shoot them and run them the fuck off. You know, take a paintball gun and light a firecracker at the same time with a red paintball in it. You light the firecracker and shoot the guy in the head with the paintball gun. They were run halfway down the street, 2 or 3 blocks down the street, before they realized that's not blood. You know what I mean? Get the fuck out of here, man. You're not allowed to, you know, we don't want you here. And I got kind of where most of the neighbors appreciated it. They liked it because we kept those idiots the fuck out of the way, man. They were just crackhead idiots. Take this shit down the street, man. You know, I got customers coming from all over the city, man. I'm not having you scaring these people. So, you know, I mean, I got a bad reputation for it. I was going to kill one guy who, my landlord was in his 80s, and this one notorious bum, he grabbed my landlord by his arms, old man Ray, and shook him real bad, and Ray had been real good to me. And, I mean, I really wanted to kill that guy, but my sister kind of intervened and stopped me from doing it, because once somebody knows, you know, my shop was mine, and everybody seemed to know that if I was running everybody out of the shop, I was up to no good. I didn't want anybody around. Well, why not? You know, why doesn't he want anybody around? And she knew in her heart what was up. She said, oh, he's up to something. He's going to get this guy, you know. And then you just invite the idiot in the shop, you know, have your way, you know, drive them out to the country, plant them, goodbye, later, throw them on the side of the road, right on the side of the creek, up by the fence on the highway. Bygones be bygones, you know. But there are people out there, at least that was my justification for hurting them, was they weren't homeless. They weren't really rejected. They were just fucking.
You have 1 minute remaining.
But I catch a little bit of a bad rep because I would hurt them. But, you know, I was kinder to I've never had a problem with the homeless guys, because they never hung out doing that shit, or the really mentally ill ones. They didn't hang out trying to do that shit. It was just the addicts that were taking advantage of their situation, and on the third of the month, they'd have 90 Oxycontins in their pockets, all their scripts refilled, and their check. So you wouldn't see them for a week or two. You know, last week of the month, there'd be 40 of them in the fucking parking lot. You know, you had to bring that shit to a halt. You know. Let me call you right back, okay? As far as all this shooting the crackheads and running them off and having a good time, yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I paid a price for it with the federal murder case, where they were trying to put me on death row, and even though I was trying to go, I didn't care. They held that against me. That was one of the things they used to show that I was, you know, I don't know, animalistic or whatever. And the simple fact of the matter is those guys, I promise you, were bullshit. They were faking it. You know, they weren't homeless. They had apartments. They were just addicts playing the system. You know, and that's the truth. And I didn't appreciate it. And I didn't appreciate them shoplifting out of the store. I didn't appreciate them running my customers off or scaring them or anything else. You know, and that's that. You know, I told them, take that shit down the street to there's a store 2 blocks up the street. Do whatever the fuck you want down there, but don't do it in this parking lot again. And I admit it. And, you know, to be honest with you, I wish I'd have just stayed quiet and quietly walked out there and snatched them up, put them in the bed of my truck, and took them out and killed them. And, you know, people wouldn't be trying to embarrass me by saying shit about, why were you shooting crackheads in the head with a fucking pellet gun? Why not? Why aren't you? You know? Fuck out of here. What the fuck you asking me that for? Ask yourself that. Why aren't you running them off? You know, I'm not talking about going and breaking into homeless camps and hurting homeless, poor, mentally ill homeless people. I'm talking about idiots that are playing the system. Fuck them. I always worked. Nobody protected me. You know, nobody stuck their neck out to protect me. So, you know, but I went to work. I worked hard. I did what I've done. I've always had a job. So I don't know. I just take offense to the characterization that it's like I was hurting homeless people and shit. Nah, it wasn't homeless people or mentally ill. Well, maybe mentally ill, but it was addicts. So how I know they were addicts was they used to sell me their pills. That would be one of the first places they'd come to sell their pills every month. So, you know, and I had to make myself not buy their pills once I got hooked on pills. These dudes had it going on, so yeah, that's fun. Shoot one in the fucking head, run him off, shoot his 40 ounce out for me. Fuck out of here. Told you I'll be over a panhandle. You know, if they didn't like it, I'd beat them up. You know? So people get upset because I that's what kills me. People say something about me shooting them in their head, shooting one of them in the head with a pellet rifle. You know, but they don't say shit about me walking around the corner and hitting the guy with a 3-piece and then stomping him once he goes down. Which was worse. You know, a pellet in the ass or fucking me beating the guy up. That's confusing to me about my detractors. You know, I think the person that brought that to your attention questions their reason why they went up there on that roof with me and did the same thing. Does that make sense? I think the question's in their heart, not in mine. I'd get out tomorrow and do it again. So, next question, I guess. Sorry, I went off a little.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's totally fine. What were some of your hobbies as an adult prior to becoming incarcerated on these two cases?
Well, I like to draw. I like to paint. I really wanted to be a mural artist, but never had the time to really get into it, although I did a few. Building cars, playing with cars, building them up, doing the math to get them right. It's one thing to have 500 horsepower, but if you can't connect it to the asphalt beneath you, it's pointless. So you got to do the math and have fun with it, you know what I mean? And that was pretty much it, fishing, that was about it. But I was so scared I'd lose the success I was having. I didn't take a lot of time off work. Let's put it like that, yeah. So I didn't have a lot of hobbies. Even though I had 5 acres with a new pond and fish and all that, and ducks, I didn't spend a lot of time at home, unfortunately. So that would be about my hobbies: building cars, playing with stuff like that.
So let's talk about the crimes that you're currently in prison for. You're serving 2 separate sentences, 1 state and 1 federal, on 2 counts of murder. Is that correct?
Right. Yep.
So, can you walk me through everything that transpired with the James DIllingham murder, starting with how you met both James and Cathy Barnett?
Yeah, I came back I was in Kentucky, and I came up to Toledo because my then soon-to-be ex-wife had spent Christmas with some fucking dickhead, and besides me, and I wasn't feeling it. So I came up and was just going to shut down the last shop I had open and take everything and go back to Kentucky and just wash it away. But I knew she was lying about who this guy was and a few things like that. So I went to town and we had dinner that Sunday night after the first of the year, and she drove, instead of driving towards her parents' house, she drove in the direction I felt sure was towards her boyfriend's. So instead of following her, I decided I'd go to the East Toledo, stop at a bar, find some pills, some dope, get high, have a nice high for my drive home, my 5.5, 6 hour drive back to Bowling Green, Kentucky. And, I ended up at the bar, and then the lady there took me to Sandy Molinette's house on East Broadway, where apparently we could find the pills I was looking for, some oxys. And there were guys there smoking crack, and people there, and there were kids, normal kids there, and then, there were teenage kids there, and it was a clean house. It didn't look anything like a crack house. It was a relapse house. People were relapsing. There was a big screen TV, but they hadn't reached the point where they'd sold everything yet. So then Cathy Barnett came in, complaining about the situation, talking about it to another prostitute, and she had been prostituting with a guy, and she was doing it in front of her kids, and then they asked me to get Cathy out of the house. They didn't want Cathy to know anything that they were planning on going over and getting in this, robbing this guy or getting this stuff. So I took Cathy and had her show me where the police was. I didn't know that they wanted her out of the house because she had a habit of talking to the police or whatever. So she took me there, and I ended up beating the holy hell out of the guy, and she was in the room, and we waited, and, ended up shooting him, taking a gun and shooting him, as I explained earlier, and then we took off on the run to Kentucky, and she refused to, I figured I could make it an 8-year case, maybe a manslaughter case, because, it didn't look like a traditional, typical robbery. It shouldn't have been a traditional, typical robbery. It didn't look anything like it, so it could have been a manslaughter. The guy still had money in his pockets. So, if it had been a robbery, it wasn't a good one. And she refused. She said she wasn't going to go back to jail. And I mentioned her kids. I said, well, what the fuck did you leave your kids? And she's like, they'll be fine, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. And there's some words before we left between one of her daughters and me and stuff like that. And so I just realized, well, she's not going to go to jail. I knew that the detective was the same detective in this case. The Dillingham case was the same detective that I beat at jury trial in 1997. So I knew all he wanted to hear was that he wanted to make it a death row case or as big of a case as he could. So I knew without Cathy to tell them that it was manslaughter, nothing more than manslaughter, no robbery, I was fucked. So, and if she'd won it back, she would have told him anything he wanted to hear. So I put her to sleep. Simple as that. You know, took her out to the woods, put her to sleep. That simple. You know, it's at that time, for whatever reason, being high on fentanyl, I was high, strung out on I was eating fucking fentanyl patches, and taking the rotten, eating fentanyl patches. I was still thinking possibly I could salvage my life, you know. And so I killed her, so there'd be no witness. And lo and behold, a guy named Dennis Smith turned out to be more of a witness than anybody ever. I don't know how he was never involved, but he made himself involved in the case. You know, there it was. So here I sit in all my splendor.
How long after killing Dillingham did you kill Cathy Barnett?
2 days. 2 days. Yeah, I mean, 2 days. You know, yeah, maybe just over 24 hours. Well, maybe just over 30 hours. Yeah. Yeah. As soon as she said she wasn't going back, going to jail, that's, you know, bitch, we're on the front page of the newspaper, bitch, you and me. What the fuck you talking about? You ain't going to jail. Aggravated murder. What do you think is going to happen? You know what I mean? So I said, okay, you're not going to jail. Presto. You know, good night. That was that. You know, put her to sleep.
That was part 1 of my interview with Otto Smith and Fred. For extra content, ad-free episodes, and more perks, head on over to patreon.com/unforbidden-truth. Thank you for listening. See you next week.
Unforbidden
Truth.
Unforbidden
Truth. Podcast.
Unforbidden
Truth. Podcast.